our focus largely, when we come on the show every week, is to provide uncommon perspectives beyond news headlines, just so that people are able to make informed decisions. And so everyone who speaks on the show is usually a thought leader in these niche areas. This niche we've mentioned, talking about policy, politics, and governance. My name is Taiwo-Sidiq, and I'm your host as usual. We are glad to be joined by our co-host, Kola Mohammed, who joins us from Southwest Nigeria, Ibadan. Hi, Kola.
Good evening, Temidayo. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Policy Panorama.
All right. We're also joined by Efe Kola Madi. Efe joins us from South, Benin City. Hello, Efe. Are you there?
Dial, good evening. I am here.
Okay.
Good evening, House. It's exciting to be joining this space today to have another interesting weekend of conversation. Good to have us do this again. Thank you.
All right. So we have a guest. Maybe it's okay to use the word special guest now, but who would be helping us dissect the issues when we get to the other segment of the show. But I would want to quickly run through the segments we have for today's show. As usual, we would move shortly into the This Week in History segment, where we'll take you back in time. Try to check back on most of the important developments that have happened in the course of the week, but in history. And then we move into our Matters Arising segment before we take the hot topic, which is usually the widely publicized topic. And then we also have the My Two Cover segment, which is our audience participation segment, where you get to engage the panelists as well as the co-host or the host on issues, opinions, thoughts they've raised in the course of the shows. And then we also allow you share your thoughts, independent views on whatever issue you want to, popular or unpopular opinion. And then finally, the show usually ends with the last line, the words of a sage, thought leader, as the case may be, philosopher, just so that that takes us into the new week, especially on the issues that have been discussed. So there is a lot that we've outlined for the show tonight, and I'm glad to welcome every one of us once again to the show. I'll be handing over now to Kola Mohammed, who takes us on This Week in History. Hello, Kola.
Yeah, Temidayo, thank you. Welcome, everyone, once again to Policy Panorama. This is the This Week in History segment. First, this week in 1972, Teslim Balogun died aged 45. On 30th July 1972, Teslim Olawale Ayinde Balogun died in his sleep, aged 45. During his life, Balogun became one of Africa's first professional football players and Nigeria's first qualified football coach, laying the foundation for generations of African players after him. Balogun also won 6 cups for Nigeria's national football team and managed the team during the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico. The Teslim Balogun Stadium, built from 1984 until it was opened in 2007 in Surulere, Lagos, was named in Balogun's honor. This week in 1966, Johnson Aguiyi-Ironsi and Adekunle Fajri were killed in Nigeria's second coup d'etat. On the morning of 29th July 1966, General Johnson Aguiyi-Ironsi, Nigeria's first military head of state, and Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle Fajri the first military governor of the Western region, were assassinated in a counter coup staged by the mutinying northern officers led by Major Salam Muhammad. Nigeria was a country severely divided along ethnic lines when Aguiyi Ironsi became its leader. There was skepticism north over the coup that Aguiyi Ironsi interrupted to become head of state. Some northerners considered it an ego conspiracy since the big players who were mostly Igbo were hardly prosecuted. Aguiyi Ironsi and Faji were captured and murdered by the revolted soldiers at the government house in Ibadan, where he had stayed the night while on a nationwide tour. Aguiyi Ironsi was succeeded by General Yakubu Gowon, who ironically was also ousted on the same day in 1975, which was 11 years later. And from there we moved to Africa. This week in 1847, Liberia declared independence from the United States of America. On 26th July 1847, the Republic of Liberia, a colony of the American Colonization Society, ACS, on the west coast of Africa, proclaimed its independence, making Liberia the first modern republic in Africa. In 1821, Liberia was founded by the ACS, an attempt to relocate former enslaved African Americans back to Africa. Liberia assisted Britain in its abolition of slave trade in Africa. Liberia wasn't diplomatically recognized by the United States until 1962, but the United States helped the West African country maintain its independence throughout the 20th century scramble for Africa. And finally, on this week in history, this week in 1957, Tunisia became a republic. On 25th July 1957, Tunisia proclaimed a republic when its National Assembly abolished the constitutional monarchy. In 1956, French colonialists handed the country's government to the base of Tunis, an institution that had ruled Tunisia since the Ottoman Empire. After the Bellical monarchy was abolished, Habib Bourguiba, leader of Tunisia's struggle for independence, who had been appointed prime minister at the time of independence, was declared president. Bourguiba would go on to lead for another 30 years. And that will be all on this week in history. Thank you for listening. Semila, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kola. I think that about two developments stand out for me. Liberia's independence. Liberia remains one of the most I don't know the words to use now, but we do know that Liberia is one of the oldest countries going by the year they gained independence, and we do know that President Buhari was in Monrovia to join the celebration of their independence anniversary. And then the part about I think it was Teslim Balogun. It's not something that many of us actually, for those of us who are familiar with Teslim Balogun Stadium, it's just popular as a stadium, but not much is known about who the stadium is named after. And of course, the counter coup of July 29, 1966 will forever be, for as many persons, political analysts and generally all of us who are political watchers, I think that was a great reminder. And maybe much later I will be asking him, I guess, but it just looks like there's some similitude between what happened then and now, except for the military parts of it. But thank you very much, Kola. So, guys, we are moving on to Matters Arising in the next segment of the show. And then Efe is on hand to take us through Matters Arising. Good evening, Efe.
Yeah, Dio, good evening. Okay, we'll just get into it right away. You would agree with me that it's been another interesting week ending, looking at it from the developments in the polity. So we've selected three stories, three items for you that we consider the biggest. Number one says UN demands Nnamdi Kanu's immediate release. The United Nations UN Human Rights Council Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has indicted both Nigeria and Kenyan government for the arrest and extradition and extraordinary rendition, torture, and continued detention of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, without due process. UN asked the Nigerian government to immediately release Kanu unconditionally and pay him adequate compensation for the arbitrary violation of his fundamental human rights. It is also recommended that government officials responsible for the torture meted to the IPOB leader be investigated and punished. The UN body further directed Nigeria to report back within 6 months of the transmission of its opinions on Kanu's matter, steps taken to comply with all the recommendations thereof. To refer the case of Kanu's torture to a special rapporteur on torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment for further consideration. The UN Working Group also threatens to take further actions to ensure the recommendations are complied with, noting that both Nigeria and Kenya are signatories to the convention and should comply. The 16-page report dated July 20, 2022 was adopted on April 4 by the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention at its 93rd session held between March 30 and April 8, 2022. The Working Group said in the report that Kanu was a victim of state prosecution as Nigeria failed to provide convincing explanations with proof that he is guilty of treason and other criminal allegations leveled against him. The Working Group also said that there was no evidence that international laws were observed in the arrest and rendition of Kanu from Kenya. Number 2, on matters arising, Wike slams Atiku vows to remain in PDP. Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State has reacted to the events that have unfolded in the aftermath of the presidential primary election of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. He spoke on Friday at the Port Harcourt International Airport in the Rivers State capital shortly after a return from a foreign trip. I have decided to be quiet because PDP is a party I love so much, said the governor during a briefing with reporters. I moved on to conclude my social contract with the people of Rivers State. However, it is time to let Nigerians know the truth. Governor Wike faulted the speech by the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar on the day he unveiled Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as his running mate. He also accused the former vice president of telling lies against him, as well as using some chieftains of the main opposition party to spread falsehood against his person. The governor vowed to respond to both the party's flag bearer and the party chieftains, whom he described as Atiku's attack dogs, one by one and line by line, in due time. He said posterity would not forgive him should he fail to set the record straight and promise to clear the air after the commissioning of the projects lined up for inauguration by the state government. On the reconciliation committee set up by the PDP leadership, Governor Wike stated that the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar had yet to send him any delegation to him. He, however, said the former President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, met with him in Spain, although in his personal capacity. According to the governor, the former Vice President came to his house to beg for his support, but suddenly doesn't know the way to his house anymore. He went on to challenge anyone to identify that he or she was sent by the PDP candidate to speak to him about the issue in the party and the aftermath of the party's presidential primary election. The PDP presidential primary election held in May. Atiku polled 371 votes to emerge as flag bearer ahead of Wike, who scored 227 votes to come second in the contest. And finally, on matters arising, senators threatened to impeach Buhari over insecurity. Terribly dissatisfied with the manner the security situation in the country has turned out, senators across political parties on Wednesday gave President Muhammadu Buhari a 6-week ultimatum to properly address worsening insecurity or face immediate impeachment. They tried to raise the motion to that effect on the Senate floor, but were frustrated by Senate President Ahmed Lawal. The Senate was unusually silent on Tuesday when it kept mum on the issue and glaring danger lurking in the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) and the recent threats by terrorists to abdue President Muhammadu Buhari, Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai, and lawmakers in the country. Led by the Senate Minority Leader Philip Aduda, the senators staged the walkout from the chambers to address newsmen as they chanted, "All we are saying, Buhari must go." The Senate Minority Leader, while addressing newsmen, said they went into a closed-door session where they deliberated on various security issues. We also took into cognizance that the Senate, at various fora, at various times and various meetings, within which we recommended to government various steps, various steps have been suggested aimed at curbing the issue of insecurity, but we have realized that even Abuja is no more safe, Aduda said. So at the closed-door session, we agreed that we will give the president an ultimatum, failing which we will move to give an impeachment notice. This was our agreement at the executive session, but when we came out, the Senate president refused to inform the public of our resolution. Since that didn't happen, we have come here in protest to let Nigerians know that we are with them. Prominent senators who joined the protest include Senator Mohammed Bukachoa, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, Buhari Senator Ahmad Buba Keita. So that's matters arising for this week. Kola, I think I should ask you now, which of these items resonated with you, maybe even outside the ones that made the that made the list. It's been a very interesting weekend from considering the polity. I want to ask which of these items resonated with you more. Which one do you think really caught your attention?
Yeah, I think it has to be the impeachment. I mean, it's our main topic today. And yeah, really, I think just even if there is something that should have been on the table for long before now, then you could even see the reaction of Ahmed Lawal. I mean, the way he tried to, shut down the whole thing before they worked out. So, I mean, of course, the gross incompetencies is thinking for everybody to smell. I mean, it's just so, and you could imagine that it was when the impeachment issue came up that Buhari ordered a security meeting that the security chiefs should show up at the State House. So that's the impeachment was not raised. It's something that I mean, this is. I think it was last week that the terrorists, because I wouldn't call them bandits again, they threatened to kidnap El-Rufai and the president himself. So, I mean, well, that stood out for me. And in fact, part of me wishes that it happens. In fact, I wish it happens. And it should send a strong signal that, come on, we still have a democracy in this country.
It's all right. There's a lot that we will say definitely because it's definitely the subject of our discourse tonight. Just quickly before Dayo takes over, what do you make of the UN call concerning Nnamdi Kanu?
Well, I think if you cannot provide a reason, so the UN's call is justified, of course. And we all see the way Nigeria now, of course, President Buhari's regime is handling Nnamdi Kanu, and then you see the way they are handling bandits who are more or less terrorists. We can juxtapose the treatment of these two separate parties, and we can see that it's more or less they are patting one on the back, and then they are seriously scolding the other. And the gravity of their offenses cannot even be compared. I mean, by a mile, they cannot be compared at all. So, of course, yeah, the UN study is justified. Why would we clamp down on Nnamdi Kanu when terrorists are killing people, broadcasting it live for everybody to see, and the president is helpless? It is just a case of misplaced priority.
It's all right. Thank you, Kola. So Dayo, over to you now. Let's probably get into the conversation tonight. Except you want to also add. Maybe I should ask you. Do you think that Prince Buhari would have made more sense for the federal government to have left Kanu in exile? Because I had that. I had said that it made more sense for the federal government to have ignored Kanu, leaving him abroad while he did what he was doing instead, because I knew that the federal government would not be able to send Kanu to jail, and I also thought that the federal government will, having arrested him, will not be able to just release him. You understand? So would it have made more sense for Kanu to have been left in exile abroad? What do you make of all of this? It appears that the federal government is now in a very difficult situation with Kanu. I don't see the federal government releasing Kanu. I don't know. Maybe when it gets closer to the election, but I really don't know. It appears that Kanu is now, a really big challenge, to get out of right now.
Yeah. For me, I don't have details about what. Like, I need to do some brush up on what international law says about the whole extraordinary rendition, which is what the federal government is accused of doing. But I think where I differ a bit is the fact that Kanu jumped bail. It may be difficult to discuss this issue and not include that part and just close our eyes to that part that okay, this person was actually granted bail and then he jumped bail, escaped the country, but escaped out of the country. But there are certain things that the federal government did, which I'm sure if Kanu supporters are going to look at it from that prism, they want to talk about how Kanu's father and mother were killed. He didn't even have the chance to come bury them or attend the burial. I mean, a couple of things like that. But personally, I would say it's a two-way thing. First, I really think that Kanu's issue, regardless of how you want to see it, is more of a political issue than legality. And that, in the long run, still has a lot to do with how the issue will be handled before this government exits power. Why do I say it's a political issue? Largely political. For example, there's a video I watched today on Facebook where they took an excerpt of Kanu condemning Peter Obi. This was far back as maybe 2013 or something, around that time. Kanu said a lot of unprintable things about Peter Obi. He's a thief, he's corrupt, he sleeps with men he has a male relationship, accusing him of being a gay. And maybe, Atiku wasn't even in the picture at this time. Then criticized Peter Obi for being in support of Goodluck Jonathan and praising Nigerian army, and that when they get Biafra, he's the one that is going to, is the Nigerian army that we have to save him because they're going to deal with him. A lot of things, and you know my position on the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. There are many things I don't like about his rhetoric, the kind of things he says, that if we are going to examine everything that Kanu broadcasted on Biafran radio, then it will be difficult for you not to find him guilty of many of these. But it doesn't change the fact that whether we like Kanu or not, due process must be followed, law must be followed, his rights has to be respected. If you are arresting him, it has to be done within the confines of international law. You don't go to kidnap him in the name of trying to make him answer to crimes. These things are things that, irrespective of whatever somebody has said, they have to be they need to be given a fair hearing in court and in line with the principle of natural justice. So I think that we will only be able to say what becomes of Kanu towards the end of this administration. But right now, if you ask me, it doesn't look like anybody cares about Kanu in this government. The government is trying to save his name and face just before the exit power, before the elections. So I don't see Kanu's issue being a top issue for somebody the president who has just been informed that is likely going to be kidnapped. So I think that Kanu still has a long road to travel.
I want to quickly come in. Sorry, please. Yeah. One of the things that also stood out this week that wasn't mentioned by Ife, of course, by other significance was Speaker Gbadami Amila's insensitive post. About his Harvard lecture, and that came at a time that his country's educational system is in serious crisis. That was hugely insensitive. It didn't make any sense coming from the number 4.
Yeah, I agree, Kola. I agree. I actually do agree. In fact, there's been rumors that he's also, this threat of impeachment may also be visiting his office. And although we have not, the media has really not covered much of that. I think he was very responsible, for him to, to have, done that. It's recklessness. You want to ask yourself, at this time when public schools are, lecturers, of public schools are on strike, lingering strike, and you are a member of the opposition party, a high-ranking member at that, and then you go and do that. It's a slap on the face, in the face of Nigerians. It's irresponsibility. I agree.
Yeah, on that issue, just before we bring up our guest, on that issue, I wasn't surprised at Gbajabi Amila's handling of the issue. If you ask me who my all-time favorite lawmaker is, it would be Gbajabi Amila. Gbajabi Amila is very cerebral, and if you followed him right from his days in the opposition, this is somebody that you see a lot. But it's clear that he goofed. What he did was totally insensitive. I'm happy that he was able to not just realize it, he was able to correct that error. He actually deleted the tweet, because I tried to look for the tweet afterwards, and it will seem like it was taken down after the apology. So I do understand the rubber stamp stuff, but Gbajabi Amila does stand tall among lawmakers. I can spend 30 minutes talking about Gbajabi Amila. It's really a fine lawmaker, and I'm sure the lessons have been learned. And one of the key lessons is that public office holder should also see that it's not a big deal for you to make an error and correct it. I'm sure we have almost forgotten that Gbajabi Amila oddly actually shot a newspaper vendor that died sometime last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it's still relevant till today. Sadly, that a life was lost. But I'm saying that it also has to do with the way he handled it. should people's life be used at the expense of PRO and all of that? But I'm just trying to point to the fact that there's a lot to learn from Gbajabiamila's action, even as for those of us who intend in any way in the future to hold the public office, elective or appointive. That's my bit on that Gbajabiamila issue. But I think the action stands condemned.
I know if he was still like taking you up on this, and I actually feel like, but then business get on with the show. Make you know that.
No, I actually agree. To a large extent, I actually do agree with. If you look at Gbajabiamila as an individual and as a politician, no, I think we can cut him some. It's not that action I can agree. I can say that the apology is acceptable because he's not in his car. He's quite a civil, politician. He's quite a Democrat. He's to a large extent. Even though Dio may be, watching his back, with the statements, but I think Dio is not far from the facts about in terms of representing the character of Gbajabiamila. So it's not. I am not even saying that. I'm not trying to bash him. I'm just saying that act in itself is condemnable, is irresponsible, and it's good that he came out to apologize. And so that's the way I see it. I don't want to. So I think we should get into the conversation.
But I have issues with it, bro. But please let's get on.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Our guest has been on the show, but somehow I think she's off again. It would appear that the network is really a challenge for her. I'm hoping that she's able to come back on. I'm trying to message her. Hopefully, she's able to come back on so that we can get to hear from her. But just before we move into the main conversation, we have Bankole Shino in the house. If you can hear me, Bankole, we want to quickly get your thoughts. Okay, Lady E is here. So I'll send Lady E a request to come up on stage. You can't hear me. Okay, if you can hear me, I sent you a request to come up on stage so that we can bring you up. But Bankole, very quickly, you want to react to everything we've said so far?
Okay, guys. Good evening, and I've been listening in and out. Actually, I'm on transit, but given the topic you talked about, I believe the country is not safe at this moment, and nobody is spared in this. We are unified in our fear and grief, and that should give us a sense of urgency as a nation to address this issue of insecurity. I am particularly happy because the intensity is now focusing more on the ruling class, and of course that will spur them to roll up their sleeves and get to work, and ultimately everybody will be better for it. I have physically visited some of these, worst hit states, particularly in the core north, and I've seen the devastation myself. I've almost been attacked. I've escaped attack. I've spoken with people who have been attacked, people who have seen the horror life, and I know that this country is under trial, under security siege. I have been living in Abuja. I see that Abuja is one of the unsafest space now in the country. And to say that Abuja is the federal capital city, it's annoying but people should not be disappointed because Kaduna is the capital of the Nigerian defense. We have all the security headquarters in Kaduna. And Kaduna has almost been overrun. So there is this collective grief and sense of fear in the land. So the next stage we are expecting is we hoping that election or electioneering activities will inspire this sense of urgency and obligation to get to the drawing board and tackle the insecurity. And I want to align myself with Nigerians who are, stoking this discussion of this pressure on the ruling government. I think we can't say it enough. The only thing I'm not happy about, however, is the distortion of the narratives. There's a widespread distortion about what this government has done, what this government has not done, and that is clearly because of the electioneering activities. But the fact that this government has not achieved ultimately in the area of security and safety of the people, and that is the greater assessor of whatever investment it has done in security. We have not seen results. We are not safe anymore. There's need for us to be safe. This is the statutory responsibility as enshrined in the Constitution by the government, and government has not been able to deliver this for us. And the fact that Katsina State is one of the unsafest spaces, speaks volumes, because Katsina is the home state of the president. So Nigerians should be security conscious. Nigerians should together look for solution genuinely. This is the right time to be together, and being our brother's keeper will be very, very helpful at this time. Open your eyes, shine your eye. If you see something, say something, and don't say because it's about this government or what government. It's about life. I have a friend whose friend was just kidnapped a few days ago, and it's an ordinary civil servant, and they asked him to go and bring 5 million. And one single car he has, he's about to sell it. We sell the car and rally everywhere. That person, life is the ultimate, but we are all under siege. So we should be unified by this terror, by this fear, and not just distorting all events just to paint the government black. The government has lost its clearly. But it could not ultimately be because of not doing anything at all. But it could just be that incompetence, yes, saboteurs, yes. Compromise, yeah. A lot of combinations, internal and external factors. But ultimately, we can't blame the government. But the citizens should not lose hope ultimately, and should not turn their back on the government, because the government at this time, we still need this government at this time to succeed to some extent, so that we can all be safe and pursue this aspiration of a better Nigeria. So this is an improved security in the country. Is for the good of all of us. The opposition party, the ruling party, the citizens, the working class, the non-working class. So let me put a stop at this time. Maybe Lady E is already around. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, my mic was muted. Funnily, I'm the one that committed that offense today. So, Lady E, are you here now? Can you hear me?
I am here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. All right. I'm supposed to do a formal introduction, but I think we'll just save that because of network, so we can get your thoughts at least before the network misbehaves again. So, we are pleased to have you, Lady E, on the show. It's your first time, and we are just glad that you could join us. But for the benefit of as many persons who are joining us, Lady E is a recognized investigative journalist, fellow of Olushoyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, and multi-award-winning broadcaster, journalist, cultural leader, trainer, mentor, communications expert. There's so much to say about her, but I want to apply the brakes there and just quickly get your thoughts, Lady Eve. What you heard? I don't know if you heard what Bankole said. He talked about urgency, that we need to tackle the issues urgently. I know that you are in Abuja, and so you are at the heart of this whole panic and fear as it appears from this side. Where should the urgency start from?
Okay, so I missed most of the conversations because my network here was pretty finicky, and so I may not have heard some of the thoughts that were passed across. But I would say this, the urgency here has been, to a very large extent, the lack of political will to actually take decisive action with decisive steps, matched with decisive capacity to actually do what needs to be done. And when you look at the conversations going on, there's quite a lot. And it takes a kind of mind, expertise, experience, diplomacy, the capacity to be able to communicate effectively, understand the root of a problem, remove personal biases, and even ethnic agenda, not to mention religious catering, aside the fact that you also look at protecting political ambitions. So the Nigerian conversation about insecurity is very multi-layered. It is so multi-layered that we have to distill each of these layers to their very root cause. And we've had 8 years to do that, not to mention the previous 8 years before that. Not to also mention the fact that during the time of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, from the 2006 thereabouts, the insurgency became an issue. It has metamorphosed. It has shown its head. It wore the cloak of religion, masqueraded itself as one fighting for a kind of law, the protection of a religious law that's supposed to supersede a social contract in a social democratic society with its own constitution. So already it takes us back to the fact that we are operating a Nigerian constitution in which religion often supersedes the social contract with its people. Which is why, if you look at how things have played out from the time of Olusegun Obasanjo down till date, even during Goodluck's time, and I think if I would say, more or less, we did not have this kind of surge in banditry conversation as mainstream during the time of late President Yar'Adua. Instead, what we had was the agitation of the militancy in the Niger Delta, a place that I'm very familiar with, a place I know its story, a place I've told its story, a place I'm also part of in so many ways. And what happened was that our resources became a fundamental issue. In other words, the Niger Delta took the conversation and said the resources are ours. And so the conversation of banditry was swept below the ground. But that is not to say that the issue of banditry is a today's conversation. Neither can we even claim it's a conversation that began during the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo. The issue of banditry, the issue of the Hausa versus Fulani conversation about land ownership, about cultural definition and identity, about the conversation of who has power over who, about the conversation of I have my own cultural tribal identity that has been subsumed by a religion that came sometimes in the 1200s and thereabouts. So you're having a people who are trying to reestablish their identity. You're having a people who are trying to protect their source of economic power, their economic base, their economic exchange. You're talking about a people who says we want to protect this identity because we have awoken to who we used to be, and we want to take back what was taken away from us. We need to keep our identity. But you also have a people who say, no, this identity that you have currently must be enforced upon you. And so, therefore, you cannot take that stand. We determine what you should do and how you should do it. In other words, what am I saying? For a long time, the northern elites, the northern politics have never given front burner to the conversations about this disquiet between these two important people, who, whether we like it or not, have now become part of Nigeria. And because they are now part of Nigeria, and not just northern Nigeria, that conversation must be reestablished. We have come to a point where we don't see this kind of teaching being taught at the Islamiyas, right? Or even the religious Christian organizations that we have. What is preached in one religion is different from what is taught in another religion. What is believed by one religion is also a situation where you have a religion masquerading as entity. And that's why you have seen the surge within the southern part of Nigeria, where the disconnect between religion and politics was separated. But now it's being currently coalesced, because the reality is that they have woken up to a consciousness that, oh, you can't do religion without politics. But it's not a case of mixing it into a powder, a gunpowder, just because you're targeting. So, the Nigerian in the south have a story about banditry. And let us understand that banditry itself, it's a crime. And that the fact that many people have gone unpunished and only now being used as tools of recruitment to carry out a vendetta, whether based on personal bias, whether based on reality and fact, whether based on healings that have not been done because some people have been hurt in the past and they were not allowed to heal. These are the conversations we're going to be talking about and needs addressing. So the Nigerian...
Okay, sorry, Lady, let me... Okay, so let me draw a line first so that, because we'll still come back to more questions and more issues. Are you saying that with this whole insecurity started with, for you? I know you referred to the Olusegun Obasanjo's administration a couple of times when you were making your introductory statement. But are you saying that it has moved from that idea of protecting a religious law and a religious establishment into issues of regional sentiments? Because you talked about northern elites, you talked about the not keeping quiet at a point in time. Is that what you are saying, that what we are seeing now is just a manifestation of religion gone wrong? Hello, are you there? Hello, Lady, are you there? Hello? Okay, if you can hear me, you may want to rejoin the conversation. You may want to log. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So, did you get what I said? Hello?
Be a
Did
case.
you get what I said?
I heard what you said. So it's not just a case.
Okay, please go on. Sorry, go on.
So it's not just a case of religion gone wrong.
Yeah, please go on. Oh. Unfortunately, it seems like I'm trying to bring you back on. If you can hear me, Lady, I will need you to accept the request to speak again. You are live. Can you hear me now?
I have accepted it. Yes, I have.
Okay. So I want you to quickly shed light on what you said. You said it's not a case of religion gone wrong alone. I know you talked about lack of political will, capacity, diplomacy, and a number of things, but you want to draw that line so that we hold the conversation there and then come back to ask more questions.
Okay. No, it's a case of religion going rogue. Take note, religion going rogue.
Okay.
And it is only going rogue because there's been too much tolerance and no consequences for bad behavior that have masqueraded in the name of religion. Criminality is wearing the cloak of religion. People hide under criminality and the carrying out of activities in that same vein under the name of religion. And then we're also seeing a situation of where politics is going rogue. That is one. We're also seeing a situation where cultural, tribal, traditional practices are also going rogue. So what we see manifesting are the evidence of the rogueness in these various aspects of our Nigerian spaces. It's why we see a generation of young children, the Gen Z generation, right? And the ones just now, and all they are growing up to see is a rogue nation if care is not taken. Are you getting what I'm trying to say?
Yes, it's clear. It's clear. But I'll come back to you. Let me quickly find out from my co-host. Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello, caller.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Yeah, so you heard what Lady said. She tried to take us down memory lane. This is where we came from. This is where we have gotten to. For her, you listened also to what she said is the point of urgency. Political will, totally absent. What is your own assessment of the situation before we go deep into the impeachment threats and all of that?
I agree completely with what you said. That submission is spot on. Yeah, I completely agree. And this history, or should I say, this state of banditry, predates Buhari, predates even Olusegun Obasanjo. Just that the variant has pronounced, and the variant they didn't act with such impunity before. I mean, we can go as far back as when as the absorption of one of the cultural identity into by an external religious identity. So I mean, so these issues have been underlying, and they are the ones, metamorphosing, into what we have today. And if this is what we have today, I mean, and it goes unattended to, uncurbed, I cannot imagine what will be the next phase. Probably the complete Islamization of the whole country. I mean, and that's another Afghanistan waiting to happen in this country. So yeah, I agree with what you said. That's my perspective.
Okay, thank you. Efe, are you there? You've heard caller just say largely he agrees with what Lady has said, but I don't know if you share a different view. Efe, is it religion we are really battling? Is that the case now? Is banditry a case of religion going rogue, like Lady has said, or politics going rogue, or bad behavior, like she also talked about?
Yeah, Dayo. What she basically has done, what Lady has done, is to state the obvious that truly, terrorism and insecurity in Nigeria is now wearing different, cloak. Has taken different dimension, and she has also properly stated many factors that over the years, have now come to fuel the challenge. She mentioned regionality, which some of them have always been with us. We've always had. Even if you go back to the Civil War, you will see that all of these factors played a major role. Regionality, ethnicity. Then she mentioned the cold rivalry, which is beginning to. A lot of Nigerians really don't know this, but it's building up. I fear that it may even escalate in the next administration. a cold war between a cold war in the north between two major civilizations, the Fulani and the Hausa, that we usually call the Hausa Fulani. She mentioned that, but I wouldn't know how that is actually feeling, how that is a factor in this challenge of insecurity right now. That's another conversation. But again, she stated the obvious. Again, having said that, in putting the buck, at Buhari's table, you want to ask. There has to be a way to tackle this. There, you have to be able to put everything together and say, okay, let us deal with this challenge. She mentioned diplomacy, and that we have seen prominent personalities who, with good experience in security, especially the Nigerian situation. We've seen publications where foreign governments have been fingered. Prominent personalities that the president and people close to the president know. We've seen pictures. We've seen the president with people whom have been fingered. The United States government and other foreign governments, in the West have, given information about sponsorship. Personally, I believe that if you want to deal with terrorism in Nigeria, in West Africa precisely, you have to target the sponsors. To a large extent, 60-70% of the challenge will be dealt with if you target the sponsors. But in Nigeria, it appears that the authorities, this administration, have really not. They've treated the sponsors with kid gloves. They've not really focused on the sponsors. Which leaves a lot of questions begging for answers. So the question is, in the midst of all of these factors that we say fear, all the dimensions that security is taking, at the end of the day, this is terrorism we are dealing with. This is Islamic fundamentalism. People taking advantage of it, and it's not in Nigeria. It's come on it was copied from the Middle East. It's been happening there. The Americans have been dealing with this. And so how do we have to be able to put everything together and say this is a challenge, this is insecurity. How do we deal with this? This is where the administration is now coming in. The president, what has the president precisely been doing? Can we really say the president, in the midst of all of the hydra-headed, you can consider it an hydra-headed situation, how has the president responded? How has he responded? That is the major issue right now. Thank you, Dayo.
Okay, I'm sure the point is well made. Especially, I like that question. How has the president responded? I would have just gone on to go back to Lady A and ask what she thinks the president should have done and all of that. But let me start from the point that I personally believe that you cannot separate humanity. I remember the piece I wrote about the Muslim ticket and death of good conscience in Nigeria. I attempted to answer a question that people have put forward in the space in recent weeks since the APC presidential candidate announced his running mate. And one of those questions is that, now that we have a Christian vice president, how has that stopped people from being killed? And I said, no, nobody expects that because you have a Christian vice president, it will stop people from being killed. The issue of having a vice president of another religion is largely a case of inclusion. It's a case of making sure that a reasonable part of your demography, your population, you provide a seat for them at the table where decisions are made and not excluding them, playing politics of exclusion. And I remember that I said the only thing that can solve the issue of killings is a leadership with human face. So I am pivoting towards the area about insecurity. It would appear like we have a government that is yet at work but holidaying. I've seen this tweet a couple of times where somebody says the only person in this country that is minding his business is President Buhari. I don't know if any of you have seen that tweet. And the person says all he does is wake up in the morning, go to the office, travel. When there's any issue, he just maintains calm. There's no, I cannot even remember what ideal governance should look like anymore, if you ask me, because I am just wondering. There's a bomb, the president is threatened, there's a terrorist attack, there's intelligence, the head of a brigade is killed, and you don't get to hear from the president at all. There's no broadcast, no. And somehow I try to excuse it in my head and say, okay, terrorists, the currency of terrorism is fear. You want to stoke fear in the population so that people are afraid they would have won. And then I'm trying to balance that between when should the president speak about a threat or an impending threat so that people are reassured, and a case where the president should keep quiet so that you are not making these threats look you are taking them seriously for the president to address such threat. And for me, it's really, really been a huge struggle. Is the president supposed to have spoken all of this while? Is he supposed to keep quiet? Who is keeping quiet now? Does the president have any iota of human feeling? Is the president really living like a leader should? Maybe you want to help answer some of these questions, Lady E. Hello, Lady E, are you with us?
Okay. So, here is what it is. There are standards of God. I am with you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You are breaking up. And I don't know. Can you hear me?
I hear you all very well.
Okay, go on. Please go on.
Okay. So, we say we are a people who prefer democracy as a form of governance. And if we say that we do, there are standards for that. There are expectations, and they are very clear. With regards to the rules of engagements with the social contract that any democratic governance have with its people. Just importantly, the fact that you have a human face that is backed by strong political will to make the decisions that are most uncomfortable and have the most difficult conversations that most people would prefer to shy away from, but needs to be confronted and dealt with. Decisiveness, where it really matters, has been the bane of Nigerians' form of governance. Political decisions, where it benefits us forum, individual House of Assembly members, whether at the national, state, legislature levels, or even political aides and appointees and ministers and those who head Agencies. When it benefits them directly, they are very decisive. What about the public good? The conversation of public good in Nigeria does not exist. Good in Nigeria, front burner discussion or conversation, is when the masses have gone out to protest, and this often when they are at their point of distress, such extreme distress and hopelessness, where a lot of carnage and damage is already done and perpetuated. That is not democracy. So let us even establish that our constitution, the way we run it, our policy implementation, the agencies, the multi-serial agencies that we have, just bloating the overheads of governance, they only affect the budget when it comes to how it translates into the pockets, but not how it translates into the implementation of these. Now, a situation where we have a president who, unfortunately, had to deal with health issues when he took on the mantle of leadership. took most of his time away. Right now, we have a man who is just trying to survive and get out of office. That's what we have right now. We have a man who, after the Kuje prison break happened, just says, okay, security apparatus, do what you need to do. Now, why is this case more disturbing for many Nigerians is because he already has the toga of a former general, a retired general, a general who had shown his mettle, as it were, when he also overthrew a government in the 1980s, even though he was also overthrown in the process. So much was expected that a general who understands intelligence would do better. And the idea where people feel that you do not live up to what your promises, capacity, competence, experience is expected. Of course, what do you expect people to do? People rate you according to that. So let's try not to even make this personalized attack on anybody. Let us go by the indices that were criteria and standards that we're supposed to use. If somebody's supposed expertise does not match their level of competence to tackle an issue and bring a resolution to them, then they are no longer capable of being in that office. There is no vote of confidence. When you have somebody who is supposed to have experience in terms of translate into content, in terms of capacities, skill sets, management ability to handle people, communicate most effectively, and be able to handle the entire gamut of an administration, and such a person fails in that capacity woefully over and again, it becomes a problem. There is no vote of confidence. So that even if some sectors of the governance may be doing well, but insecurity threatens every aspect of any advantage or advancement that has been made in different sectors, it goes back again to incapacity to handle a particular issue that actually has a multiplier effect on the rest of our lives. Insecurity damages economic stability. Insecurity prevents foreign direct investment into any nation. Insecurity halts production capacity of a people, not to mention its manufacturing and industrialization. And in the age of innovation, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics taking center stage, that leaves a country at the mercy of constant fear, hopelessness, and not the ability to tap into their human capacity, natural resources to be able to do well. A situation where 70% of Nigerian population, including educated people with certificates, not to mention the highest number of persons below poverty line, who use Okada as a means of transportation to survive, take note, to survive, to eke out their barely $1 a day to cater for their families. You deny them the opportunity of the source of income, and then you put them at the mercy of elements, whether the weather and climatic elements or human elements where a landlord pursues you out of your house, or the agricultural elements, no access to food and survival. When you deny people and push them to the walls like this, what kind of creatures do you want to make out of them? There are people who will bite, who will fight back, and who will survive at any means by all means. And when you create a society of chaos and anarchy, the no vote of confidence is at its highest peak. And when you now see a situation where the state assemblies, the national assemblies, are not representing the public good, are no longer the voices of representation of the people whom they serve, who voted them into these offices, there is no vote of confidence that the legislature will live up to its responsibility. So now we have a situation where the legislature, there is no vote of confidence. At the executive level, there's no vote of confidence. you come down to levels of where the judiciary exists, you also query the no vote of confidence on so many layers and so many levels. Why we give it up for INEC to say that they have actually been making the electoral processes as more refined and independent, systematically driven. We also see situations where our judiciary needs to sit up to be the last hope of the masses. And this is where the judiciary is going to play a crucial role. Where there is no vote of confidence, will they be able to say yes at this point in time? There is no capacity by these collective selected people to do the job. Hence, the mantle must shift. Will they support the process?
Okay, let me stop you there, Lady E. I'll just put a pause there and come back to you again. But I think that what largely you've dwelt on is the fact that across board there's two things. I see lack of I think the word is vote of no confidence. That's the word I wanted to use. Across board, the leadership strata, and then you talked about a case of also interrogating whether we are actually practicing democracy as it should. For me, that's one question I want to ask. That's one question I want to ask my co-host. So I'll start with you, Kola. Kola, are you there? Hello, Kola.
Yes, I did.
So I want to find out from you, Kola, what's your thought about what she said? Like, can you attempt to provide answers to that question? Do you think that the way we are practicing democracy currently gives any indication of our understanding of what democracy is about?
Yeah, I think Lady E raised some pertinent rhetorics which, give us a lot to ponder on. And to answer your question, the way we are practicing democracy at the moment, of course, we have a lot of evolution to do. A lot. We have evolutions to do because democracy as it is just like language. I'm a language specialist, and then there's what we call social linguistics, where you look at the relationship between language and society and how language itself evolves with time. So if we are importing democracy, we should adjust it. To our sociocultural, historical, and sociocultural realities, such that it's not just that we're just bringing it to kind and think, and then we adjust it to our reality. And in the same vein, we should also consider our sensibilities, our sensitivities, and the lines on which our nation is precariously placed. So these are things that we should consider. This is 2022. We are still talking about same-faith tickets. We are still talking about ethnicity. We are still talking about we are still talking about federal character. We are still. These are things that we are talking about structuring. We are talking about a whole lot of things that should not. We should have evolved. We should have evolved from those stages. So it's why many critics and political analysts will say that democracy in Africa and Nigeria in this scenario now is still nascent. Yeah, we are still growing. We still have a lot of work to do. This is in 2022. We are still debating whether we should have INEC. We should have. We are still debating INEC database. We are still debating card reader is online transmission of voting. Yeah, that's what I want to remember. We are still debating in 2022. At some point, CSOs and a whole lot of other bodies had to protest that the president should sign this into law. There was delay on the part of the president and so on. These are things that we are still discussing. Recently I saw I saw a motion. I think it was this public something that someone raised concerning that pictures and pictures of candidates to be on ballot papers. I mean, these are things that we are still, debating in 2022. So so when do we want to get to online voting? When do we want to? When do we even want to discuss? Okay, you're having state police, having restructuring, having this, having that. So yeah, of course, we have a lot of growing up to do when it comes to democracy. But largely, I believe that our democracy should be one that would encompass all the delicate issues that make up this country, whether it's religion, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's any other thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kola. Efe, I'm coming to you right away. Personally, I feel some form of disgust when I hear people use words like Buhari is the next on the throne. Words like you cannot rule over this country. They are the next person to rule over this country. Even the word ruling party, there's a way I feel about it. And then a couple of these other things. I'm still sticking on the issue of democracy. Is there something that we are not saying that about our democracy that you think has brought us to this point where security is at an all-time low? I want to quickly read for the benefit of our listeners a couple of stats I got, I think 2 days ago. One of them says that we have, this is the total number of fatalities that have occurred in the first quarter of 2022. 1,000 Northwest 1,373, second quarter 730, making it a total of 2,086 people that have suffered from this conflict. Then in Northeast 1,887, in the North Central 1,676, in the Southeast 363, in the Southwest 327, and in the South 179. Then there is the one about adoptions. Sorry, I'm trying to pull that up. There's the one about abductions, and you also have very worrisome stats about people who have been abducted. So you have first quarter of 2022, 1,062 people were abducted in the Northwest, and then in the second quarter, 726, which means that 1,788 people were abducted from the Northwest in the last 6 months. Then in the Northeast, about 316 abductions. In the North Central, 816. In the Southeast, 127. Southwest, 153. South 157. I can go on and on, but you can be assured that this what we are reading out is not stats of animals, human beings, citizens like us. So if you want to react to that, but just before, because I know that we may need to permit Lady to leave, but I want to find out from you, Lady, quickly, what's your reaction to this, especially with putting the issue of impeachment on the table? We have about 15 minutes before we wrap up the show. I just want to find out from you, Lady E. Now, do you think impeachment is a solution to these issues? Hello, Lady, are you there? Lady? Oh, okay. I think that you've reverted back. I sent you a request to speak. You want to quickly accept it. So Efe, let me find out from you, Efe. I read out those statistics. What's your point about abductions and fatalities? The stats I read. does it reflect anything that we're probably missing apart from the fact that we may not be practicing democracy as we ought to, like Lady has said?
Dayo, see, just early on today, I saw an even more disturbing statistics. Summing up the fatality so far this year. I saw I saw on, I think, on TVC, I saw 6,698 deaths so far. I saw 300 and 3,357 adoptions. So yeah, of course, those statistics are true, and this is even official, anyways. We don't even know, the much, if we actually have.
Yeah.
You understand? So the unreported situation. So, Dayo, see, we talked about democracy, and see, let us leave democracy alone. See, democracy is not our problem. Democracy is fine. The challenge, I like the way Lady in the background, she gave, when she was speaking. Now we've had factors of religion, we've had factors of regionality, ethnicity, politicking, politics, gone rogue. Right now we don't even know. I can understand why she speaks like that, because right now you can't even tell whether this is still what is happening now. If this is still the religious fundamentalism. You can't really tell. You can't tell if this is about just the electioneering. You can't tell. But I know that the government exactly knows what is happening. You did know. You know that before now. Was it some 2 years ago, even early last year, that the DSS had come out to issue a notice that the terrorists were infiltrating Abuja, and the government came out to dismiss all of that, even though those information came from a reputable national institution, security institution. You understand? Now, democracy is not the problem. We've had ethnicity, we've had national character is not our problem. Actually, we must thank some of the founding fathers of this country who suggested all of those to manage the peculiarity of the Nigerian state. We've been having that. Yeah, Obasanjo came. At least let's start looking at this again from 1999. Obasanjo came, did his 8 years, and we're able to manage and move on with federal character, with all of that. Zoning and all of that. Yadua came, Jonathan. Why, have things deteriorated? If you go back in the last 7 years, it will appear that our challenges, we've been further exposed. Some of the peculiarities we have as a state that we have been managing, and obviously, a state will evolve. You understand? We will evolve, and we've been managing all of that. But in the last 7 years, we've seen a collapse. We've seen a group of people who have, especially if you look at how this Muslim conversation that's still on now, it just exposes everything, that we have a group of people running the country who don't even understand our peculiarities. They don't understand the gravity of our peculiarities, and why founding fathers and politicians and leaders before now have suggested all of those methods that we have been using to manage the situation as we evolve. They don't understand it. These people have no business running a state like Nigeria. They don't understand it. They don't understand the system. They don't understand our peculiarities and why we need to, adopt certain, practices. So it's not democracy. Democracy is not the problem here at all. There's a social contract. Government provides security. Agenda enable economic prosperity. The people obey laws, pay taxes, be patriotic and all of that. But in the midst of that, you have peculiarities that must be managed with caution. It is that we have a group of people who don't understand the states that they are running. And that is what has exposed us. That is why security has, has deteriorated. we've had situations where somebody, was so parochial, sentimentality, ethnicity. It doesn't. Somebody commits a crime because the person comes from your ethnic group. How are you going to run a state like that? Then the person is not prosecuted. That is how we got here. Let's state the facts. That's how we got here. We've had issues of regionality. We've had, ethnicity. We've had, our religious diversity. We've had all of those issues. But we've been managing and we've been trying to evolve. What has happened under the Buhari administration is that we have a group of people who pretended or are pretending not to understand who we are as a people. And again, seeing how the APC has now, immersed with the Muslim, it just lays credence to all of that fact. And some of the arguments they are putting up. These guys, either they are pretending or like some people are saying in some quarters that they have an agenda, so they really don't mind. But you are going to have to mind, because not minding is what is resulting in the situation that we are in. So democracy is not our problem at all. Dayo, it's
Okay,
not.
I'll have to stop you there. We need to shut down the show in about 15 minutes. So, I want to. Is there anybody who has contribution to make? I'd like to hear from. We have Regina in the audience. We have Fubara in the audience. We also have Amoye in the audience. We'd like to hear your thoughts. Anything you have to say, contribution you have to make before we take our final thoughts on the show. I sent you a request if you can hear me, Regina. We want to get your thoughts shortly in a minute, and then we continue with the show. Take our final thoughts on the show. Okay. Yes. Amoria, we can hear you. You are live. Oh, it seems it's a network issue. Amoria, if you can hear me, I've accepted your request. Please, you may need to. Maybe I suspect it's a network thing, but because of time, let me quickly move very quickly to Lady. Lady, are you still with us?
I'm with you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, let's talk very quickly. We're rounding up now. What do you think is? Do you think that this impeachment is likely to bring anything? This threat of impeachment is likely to. I know we talked about when you had written some days ago about that it was time to impeach the president, but let's face it now. Do you think that this is likely to bring any good to the situation on ground?
Usually, we need to understand why does the impeachment come to play in the first place. When there is no longer vote of confidence, when you realize that a gross misrule has happened in governance, when you see that human lives are treated as nothing, even though the process for impeaching the president as contained in section 143 of the 1999 Constitution is very clear. It is also clear stating that before filing that notice of allegation in writing for gross misconduct and every other kind of issue you can talk about, if I let us break it clear, according to the Constitution, a gross misconduct is a grave violation or breach of the provisions of this Constitution or a misconduct of such nature, right, as to amount in the opinion of the National Assembly as gross misconduct. When you can no longer be in a capacity where you can protect the lives of the citizens of the country at the helm of affair, if you have shown you don't have the capacity to do that, and people's lives are wasted year in, year out, it's an example of gross misconduct. It's a situation where, according to the Nigerian Constitution, if a president does not have the capacity to do something, it has become clear, whether physically, mentally, or otherwise, has shown he does not have the capacity to handle the office. Take note, it's the office. It's not about the man as a person. The office requires a certain standard, a certain level of competence, a certain result that must be achieved. If the KPIs are not matching, it means you no longer need that person at the helm of affairs. And the National Assembly's job is to prove beyond all reasonable doubt a motion of allegation written out, clearly stated why this person is no longer competent. It is why you have the no vote of confidence. And then the mantle shifts to whoever is believed can do the job. Be it the vice, or in the worst case scenario, where there's no vice, you now have the the president of the Senate sitting up. But even in this context, one of the reasons why impeachments are usually enabled is one, to call into question an incapacity and incompetence of somebody at the helm of affairs not being able to do their job. One. Two, to also use as a moral stick, a moral disciplinary tool to say you cannot be in office and not discharge your duties effectively. It is a call to action that wakes up the entire parliament, the entire legislature, the executive, the judiciary, to like, oh my goodness, we're not doing our job. We need to sit up. So it's not a personal attack. It is simply a sack to show somebody cannot do the job. The person can excel in other places and spheres of life. That's fine. But if the person cannot do the specific job of running this country and handling the complexity of the issues on ground, and has shown favoritism and have enabled the back and forth fight between more tribal wars, more religious insensitivity, right? Even the parties in their constitution themselves makes it clear that when certain kind of behavior are enabled, then people who are should be fined, disciplined, or sanctioned as necessary.
All right, thank you very much.
And
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
In
Hello?
7 months, things can change. For is will the intent is meant political.
Oh, I think your network is. We could barely hear you for the last part of your. We could barely hear you, lady, for the last part of your analysis. It seems like the network was breaking up badly. But we are rounding up now. I want to quickly get. If it wasn't your final thoughts on the show, you think that this is a waste of time, or I mean, we are supposed to have done this yesterday.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. So do I continue, or I can just end it?
I'll come back to you, lady. I just want to get their final thoughts as we wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Dayo. Dayo, except I want to just give you something to smile about. I don't see this impeachment happening. But again, you can see, like LD did say, impeachment is not just necessarily about sacking the head of the executive. Is also a wake up call. But the question you want to ask, when you say a wake up call, is that not? I don't think that is anything that will make Nigerians smile at all. We are not. This is not the time to be waking up, sending wake up calls, and it's just too late for all of that. So I don't see the impeachment happening. But at least it is good that the lawmakers are having the courage to do this now. Maybe because the threat, the chicken is, it appears that the chicken is coming home to roost, if that is a suitable expression. The threats are coming closer to the elite and the political elite precisely now. So it's good. It's good. I don't see this impeachment, happening, and I don't even think it will solve, because this is another conversation entirely. Impeaching a Nigerian president today, nowadays, at our level, of the involvement as a state, it's pretty difficult. It's a very dicey situation. I don't have the time to go into it, and so I don't see the impeachment happening. So I can just say maybe the president now, if he can just see that this is a very terrible situation we are in. If you can't do the job, yeah, you can stay there. Give the free hands to people you know can really do this work. Let them see the most that they can do. You understand? But to say that the impeachment will happen, I don't see it happening.
All right. Kola, what are your final thoughts? Thank you very much. What are your final thoughts, Kola?
Well, from like I mentioned earlier, I would actually be delighted with something that can be followed through. I mean, even if it does not happen, but like the process should go through. Probably they say that the last point, but then there should be like initiation of action. So I would love to see that, and at least it will have an impact on democracy growth. I mean, to show that nothing is truly impossible in this climate. But then, and I sincerely believe that even the number of months left for this government is not too short to have a drastic turnaround. But just that the lethargy that we experience from our apex leader is just as frustrating as it is not. Yeah, that's it.
All right. I want to thank everyone. We are 3 minutes, almost 3 minutes before the closing out of the show today. I just want to quickly get your very final thoughts, lady, in 30 seconds, if you can. How do you think we should progress in 30 seconds, please?
We need a more active set of citizens, that's all. We need citizens who understand the role of the state assembly members they are asking to represent them. If you don't have good representation at the level where it matters most, where the political will should be exercised, then you're going to pay the price, which is what we're paying today.
All right. For me, my final thoughts today is that it would appear that there is no consequence for bad behavior, both by the led and by the leaders. And so I wholeheartedly support impeachment process against President Muhammadu Buhari. And if for any reason at all, it should be that, and this is what I've argued about, regardless, personally, this is my personal opinion, regardless of whoever is running as APC presidential candidate, I don't care about names. I think that the APC should not be in any conversation about a presidential election in the next in February, because there has to be consequence for bad behavior. What then is the incentive for good governance if we would just close our eyes, wear our cap of amnesia, and say, oh, nothing happened? I really think, like I always say on this show, I would have been worried. I would have been happy, rather. I would have been happy if our lives were set back in the last 7 years and say, okay, this government set us back, because setting our lives back would mean that we are moving back to Jonathan or moving back to Yaradua or Obasanjo era, which all of those administrations were better than this administration. So actually, it's the point that we've been stagnant over the last 7 years. We didn't make any progress. We didn't go backwards. So that's my own final thought on the show. And then we'll take the last line. The last line on the show today is from George Schultz, and it says, trust is fundamental, reciprocal, and pervasive. If it's present, anything is possible. If it's absent, nothing is possible. I'll take that again. George P. Schultz is who we are taking our last line from today, and it says, trust is fundamental, reciprocal, and pervasive. If it's present, anything is possible. If it's absent, nothing is possible. With about 10 months for the end of the Buhari administration, I doubt that this government can galvanize Nigerians to believe in its ability to do anything. And so this is why we have put this forward. But for thought as we go into the new week, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who joined the show from the beginning at 8 p.m. up to this time. It's been powerful. Really, really appreciate you. I want to especially thank Lady E. We did bring you aboard on very short notice, like very, very short notice. But we want to thank you for your commitment to making sure that you're able to share insights and memorable takes on today's show. Thank you so much. Thank you to Joao, Efe, and Kola. Lady, we do hope when next we call you, you oblige. And please do come around from time to time.
All right, well done. I appreciate being here. It's I think this should have been given more publicity because we shouldn't just become echo chambers of one another. Okay. We should be able to drive conversations with more voices that are even disparate from what we believe or consider a viewpoint of a given issue. Because when we make the conversation more robust, what we do is we sow seeds, and these seeds have a way of germinating.
All right, so I will end by thank you very much. This is well noted. I will end by saying that this is our 13th episode on season 3 of this show. As usual, as we've done in the first 2 seasons, so we'll take a break after a couple of episodes. And so it's our 37th episode overall since we started the show. And we'll be taking a break. The show will be resuming next month, but we will communicate as usual what we should expect in the next season. So this is me saying good night and do have a lovely week ahead. Bye everyone.
Bye, take care everyone. Cheers.